Crime is contagious. If the government becomes a lawbreaker, it breeds contempt for law. It invites every man to become a law unto himself, and it invites anarchy. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today is an all-party government the solution to Sri Lanka's crisis? Joining us this evening are Mr. Farman Qasim, President's Council, Legal Secretary of the Samakhi Jana Balavega, Mr. Kesarlal Gunasekara, former Member of Parliament, Sri Lanka Freedom Party, as well as Councillor of the Devila Mount Lebanon Municipal Council. We would be joined momentarily by Professor Tissa Vitharana, Sri Lanka Pojana Peramuna Member of Parliament and leader of the Lanka Samaj Party. We are awaiting the arrival of Professor Vitharana. However, as I always say, time and tide wait for no man. So we start the show with the two guests in our studios this evening. Let's start off tonight's show with Farman Qasim, President's Council, Legal Secretary of the Samakhi Jana Balavega. Farman, interestingly, isn't it sad and rather depressing as a member of the general public? I am not asking this question to you or posing this question to you as you are the Legal Secretary of the Samakhi Jana Balavega, but I'm posing this question to you as a member of public. Don't you think it's very sad that Sri Lanka lacked a strong opposition party to render a political result out of the people's protests that was witnessed several weeks ago in the country?
See, Shami, what you mean by a weak opposition or not taking advantage of the Aragalaya, I don't know how you are basing your argument on. Because as you know, the present government was voted in overwhelmingly by almost a two-thirds majority, and the Samakhi Jana Balavega and the coalition partners have around 60 seats in parliament. So you cannot take advantage, like a parliamentary advantage, or constitutionally you cannot do anything much. Also, as a political party in the democratic framework of things, the only way we have been voted for the opposition for 5 years. So for 5 years you are in the opposition. The only way we can get into governance is by a people's mandate. So that will come only at an election. So constitutionally an election can be called in from March next year if the president dissolves parliament if he so wishes, or a presidential election after November next year. So there is no basis to say that the opposition is weak. The opposition has been doing what they have to do. In fact, also this Aragalaya came about, if you take your mind back, the first protests were done by the SJB on the 18th of November last year. Then when the emergency and the curfew was declared, we defied that and created civil unrest. So we have been giving leadership to all these protests. The other organic protests, I don't say we were involved in it, but they were organic and they came out on their own because we took the lead. So we have been taking the lead whenever there was a possibility. General public are frustrated, that we understand, but the general public must also understand that the general public voted this government in, voted the past president with over 53%, one of the highest majorities ever after Mrs. Chandrika Bandana Kumartunga, and also around 146 seats in parliament. So once, in a democratic framework, once the people have voted that way, it is for the mandate of 5 years. So there is nothing much that you can do within a democratic framework, unless of course we go and take up arms or something like that, or do some insurgency, which we don't want to do.
Wasn't there a golden opportunity when President Gotabaya Rajapaksa left the country and the doors were open for a SJB member to contest the presidential election that was held within the parliamentary complex? And wouldn't that be an ideal opportunity for the SJB leadership to check how many people are in favor of them, at least even in parliament?
No, so again what I say is the SLPP has the most number of seats. There are 146 seats in parliament. See, in my opinion, there should have been no contest at all. When His Excellency Ranjit Singh Premadasa passed and D.B. Vijayduga came in, there was no contest, and UMP had only 126 at that time. So the parliament majority is with SLPP. The mandate is for the SLPP.
Then why do you all even field a candidate like Dala Salha Peruma at the elections, very well knowing that you all will be defeated?
So it is our moral right to come forward. Like I said, there is no purpose, but it's a moral right that we come forward. We also have to walk the talk, right? So we brought our candidate forward. Then Dada Salaperuma said, okay, I I may have a certain number of seats that I can bring in, and the best possible opportunity of creating or having a president other than a Rajapaksa was to have Dallas as plus as Dallas parliamentarians as well as our parliamentarians. That was the best shot. So we gave it our best shot. But the
Dallas Araparuma didn't come with the numbers. Or did the UNP or the SJB members voted in favor of Ranil Wickremesinghe?
Okay, first of all, it's a secret ballot. 134 voted for Ranil Wickremesinghe. 120 voted for the emergency. So I don't have to answer the question any further there. No? People are saying SJB voted here, SJB voted there. But the numbers don't match up. You have to think logically. The numbers don't match up. We have 15 parliament now. With the 10, at the most 10 TNA is 60. Another 22. So the numbers don't match up. 120 with the absentee members, 34 were absent. 120 voted for the emergency. So we know who SLPP holds sway. They will still hold sway, and they will go on like this, taking the country for a ride, taking the people for a ride, and they'll go on like this for the next couple of years.
Farman, given the current context that we are facing at the moment, it's very clear there needs to be negotiations with the international community, international players. The president will have to play a very big role at this instance. In a situation like that, do you think that Dallas Araparuma was the best bet that the SJB could have banked on and not Sajith Premadasu to contest the election?
See, again, as I'm telling you, Dallas Araparuma may not have been the best, but the best to have have a non-Rajapaksa Laki there. Right? So the best bet was the Dallas Araparuma, and also then Sajith Premadasu would have been the Prime Minister. And one person can't do. See, Sri Lankans make this mistake of trying to get a messiah to come in. You can't do that. One person is not going to change this country, or for any country for that matter. You have to have systems in place, and you have to have governance in place. One person, I keep on saying this, one person can't save a country. It's absurd to think so. It's only a system and a team. You have to have a system and a team.
But countries like Singapore, for an example, under the leadership of Lee Kuan Yew, changed drastically.
That's what I'm saying. Lee Kuan Yew.
Mahathir Mohamad in Malaysia took the lead.
Shamin, what I'm saying,
there are instances in which things have changed.
That analogy is wrong because they gave leadership. What did Lee Kuan Yew do? Lee Kuan Yew, the first thing he came into power was he created an anti-corruption unit, totally independent anti-corruption unit. He was just after Oxford. He was 36 years. His cabinet was his friends, 30s and 40s. 6 months down the line, one of his good friends who was in the cabinet went abroad and came back in the plane. And what did he do? The Inland Revenue asked him, from where did you get the money to go on this trip? He was immediately arrested. One of his best friends, he was sent into jail. So these were systems that were in place. Lee Kuan Yew alone didn't do it. Mahathir Mohamad alone didn't do it. Pak alone didn't do it in South Korea. They created systems. So once you create systems, then the country develops. So unless and otherwise we have systems, one man thing is a fallacy. It will never happen.
Right. So right now there is discussions about forming an all-party government. The parliament has been prorogued. We'll speak about that in a bit with regard to how the COPE committee proceedings are going to be unfolding as well, because we are very well aware that Ajit Niwad Cabral, P.B. Jayasundara was to appear before the COPE committee, before it was prorogued. How things would transpire from this time onwards, we'll discuss that later on. Farman, but what is the position of the SJB with regard to joining an all-party government with Ranil Wickremesinghe at the helm?
See, if it's an all-party government, it has to be done with good faith. How you do an all-party government is you don't appoint 18 cabinet ministers and then call the other MPs, write individual letters asking them to join the government. That's not the way you do an all-party government. An all-party government means first before you appoint any cabinet, first you say this is the bare minimum we want to do in this particular time. So you say 10 points, this is the economy, this is what we want to do, and then you say we have a cabinet of 5 or 10, and the economy is the number one thing that we need to sort out, and then you form the government for that particular purpose and for that particular time. So the attempt by Ranil Wickremesinghe is tainted with total bad faith, because he appoints 18 cabinet ministers, then writes individual letters. That is not an all-party government. An all-party government, that's what Winston Churchill did. I mean, he came in for a specific purpose. He appointed the leader of the opposition, Clement Attlee, as the deputy prime minister, and that's how they went forward. Here he appoints the prime minister, then he appoints 18 cabinet ministers, and then writes letters to individual MPs. So it doesn't sound right. It's utter fraud, basically.
Will the SJB leadership prevent from any members joining hands with the government to form an all-party government?
No, that's why I said this is not an all-party government. You can't call it just because you poach MPs, it's not an all-party government. An all-party government must represent the people. You have to represent the people, otherwise it's just another fallacy, it's just another game that is going on. Game among the MPs, numbers are changing. I mean, we are just tricking the people and we are taking the country down the precipice. Right? This is going to end up like, I hopefully not, I pray and hope it does not end like the French Revolution. It should not happen so, because the leaders of this country are playing games. And when you play games, naturally things like this will happen. Right? So it is not an all-party government. You can't have an all-party government like this. Just because you poach 5 from the SJB, you poach 5 from another party, that's not called an all-party government. So that is bribery and corruption.
So you're saying that leaders in Sri Lanka right now are playing games. Does that include the leader of the SJB as well?
No, if you are playing games, you will, Sajid Premdas would be president by now. That's where there is no game.
Okay. Thank you very much, Farman Qasim, President's Council, Legal Secretary of the Samakhi Jana Balavega. We now have Professor Tissa Vitarana, Sri Lanka Pujana Perimana Member of Parliament and leader of the Lanka Samasamaja Party in the studio as well. I'll get back to you momentarily, Mr. Professor Vitarana, as soon as you get some breath after walking all that way from downstairs to the first floor. So I now move my attention to Mr. Kesaralal Gunasekara, former Member of Parliament of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Council of the Devali Mountain Municipal Council. Mr. Gunasekara, who are the biggest winners and biggest losers as far as the appointment of the president was concerned a few weeks ago in Sri Lanka?
Well, the appointment of the president was done by members of parliament, not by the people of this country.
So who were the biggest winners? Was it the SLPP that won?
Speak about winners or losers.
Was it the SLPP, the UNP, or the SLFP?
No, you cannot speak about winners or losers, because it's the members of parliament who decided who should be the president.
But don't you think, Mr. Gunasekara, that the people are the biggest losers on what happened or transpired in parliament a few weeks ago, when Ranil Wickremesinghe, who did not have a mandate, took over as the president of the country with a mere 25,000 votes in Colombo? You may say this is a democratic process in which the parliamentary system works in Sri Lanka, but what is your opinion?
That is left to be seen, Shamir. That's left to be seen as to how he is going to perform. But I still feel when he was appointed as Prime Minister, I thought it would have been far more better if he had spoken to the opposition groups in Parliament and then accepted the position. That would have been far more better, I thought. But that did not happen.
But Mr. Gunasekara, you've been coming on this show quite a while, and you've always been very vociferous about the country situation. And you're also among the few individuals who thought that Ranil Wickremesinghe would be the best bet to lead the country in a situation like this, where we are almost in an abyss. We can't see the light end of the tunnel. So you were one of the firm believers that Ranil Wickremesinghe is a person who could steer the country. But your leadership doesn't think so. Do they?
I don't know. I mean, of course, I am not in a position to answer that question, because I have personally not spoken to the leadership about that aspect. But then, as far as I'm concerned, I am for the country. I'm not for individuals. I'm for the country. I still feel that we need a good setup in this country for us to come out of this quagmire. It's not going to be that easy, as far as I'm concerned.
But do you think, given the history of Ranil Wickremesinghe and Maithripala Sirisena during governance, do you think the SLFP members voted in favor of Sajid Premadasa's candidate, Dalasalaha Peruma, at the recent appointment of the president in
They should have voted for Dalasalaha.
No, I'm not asking whether they should have or they shouldn't have. I'm asking you a very direct question. Did they vote in favor of Dalasalaha Peruma?
I mean, nobody has told me about it. Nobody has told me anything contrary to that. So I presume that they have voted.
You presume that they have voted?
Well, that was the decision.
Mr. Gunasekara, what is the position of Maithripala Sirisena now? Because we saw him making statements with regard to joining an all-party government. Your Secretary General, that's Nayasir Jayasekara, has not indicated whether or not ministerial positions would be accepted from the government. If that's the case, what would be the role played by the SLFP, the 15 members of parliament? I'm sorry, 13, because 2 crossed over to the government, right? Cecil Premajayant and Mahinda Marvir, I forgot those two, omitting those two. What would be the position of the SLFP with the 13 members that they have?
Well, the question is, they need to discuss this matter as to how we are going to take this country forward. It's not going to be that easy, because Ranil Wickremesinghe himself needs to understand that he doesn't have the support of a United National Party, because he's from a different party and he's there with the support of the SLPP. In that backdrop, it's going to be a very, very difficult task for him. But still, for all, everybody in Parliament needs to understand that the country is much more important than anything else, and therefore they need to get together as to whether the all-party operation can work is left to be seen, but they need to discuss that matter. That I feel it could work, because if they all get together for a reasonable period of time and then go for an election.
Do you see a marriage between Ranil Wickremesinghe and Maithripala Sirisena, given the very bitter 4 to 5 years that they were in governance?
All those things can change,
There are no enemies or friends in politics. I remember
there are no permanent friends and permanent enemies in politics.
How the cookie crumbles, Mr. Gunasekara, don't you think so? How the cookie crumbles in favor of politicians whenever they want, they wear a different hat. Isn't that a pity itself when it comes to the people of the country?
No, that is always the case with regard to politics all over the world. All over the world. Things happen in that manner.
And people face the brunt.
People have been facing the brunt right throughout, I feel. In fact, you asked that question about the Aragale. I feel that they have fundamentally faced the brunt, continuously. And if I read this correctly, I think that they should not be ignored. If the government of President Ranil Wickremesinghe ignores them, we could be in for trouble. We could be in for trouble. I'm not saying because I have any information.
Yeah, meaning...
but I feel, because you need to, you have to understand that you need to take them into consideration. You have to understand that you need to consider them with whatever you are doing. Because don't forget one thing, whether it's right or wrong, whether it's legal or not, a cabinet was sent home, president went off, prime minister went off. That's the power of them. So don't write them off.
And ultimately...
Don't underestimate them.
And ultimately, Mr. Gunasekara, the people had to face the brunt.
Always the people have to face the brunt.
And now we have to wait for another 2.5 years until a presidential election is held, and a few more months.
Don't ever think that the next presidential election also is going to be a solution. I feel that we have gone back 5 years, 5 to 8 years. We have gone back. It's not going to be that easy.
So ultimately, what you're trying to say is, joining an all-party government, would that be the solution for the SLFP's political ambitions in the future?
With firm understanding. It's very important. It's a very tight rope that Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe has to walk. As to whether he's prepared to walk that, I don't know. But he needs to walk that if he's going to get this country forward. Very dicey.
Mr. Gunasekara, now, when Ranil Wickremesinghe took over the party in 1994, everyone said that he was trying to take the country into an abyss, and the UNP had fallen into this situation because of him being the leader of the United National Party. 1994, when he was the leader of the United National Party. But God save the Queen, he was able to resurrect or somewhat show some wisdom and become the president of the country. But
that's his luck.
But Maithripala Sirisena is also responsible for the voter base deterioration of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party as well. What is his legacy going to be like?
No question. If you really want me to analyze this situation with all my years of experience, Shamin, first time you have asked this question for me. As far as I am concerned, I feel that that combination of Ranil Wickremesinghe and Maithripala Sirisena, the doer should have been Ranil Wickremesinghe, and I feel I fault him for not doing his job properly. I fault him. I still fault him on that. Because he's much more experienced, he's much more capable. He should have known as to how to move forward with the president. That did not happen. I don't want to elaborate because there are so many stories that I am aware of. It's not correct for me to elaborate on those.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kesara Gunasekara, former Member of Parliament, Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Councillor of the Hill
But
Mountain.
in fairness to Maithripala Sirisena, the only president in this country who reduced his powers, don't forget that.
Some things are better said, better not said rather than being said, Mr. Gunasekara. So we will leave it at that. Anyway, now I move my attention to Professor Tissa Vitarana, Sri Lanka Pojana Peramuna Member of Parliament, leader of the Lanka Samaja Party. Professor Vitarana, still a member of the Sri Lanka Pojana Peramuna?
Well, yes and no, in the sense that we really, not only the LSSP, the group of about 41 members went and sat in the opposition side of the aisle, not as a opposition per se group, but as an independent group which didn't agree with the policies of the government and wanted an alternative set of policies carried out, which were offered to the president at that time, Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He didn't discuss those issues, and he said go and meet the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister with regard to financial matters, and nothing came of it. So the group of 10 parties that have aligned now have set down in print a document which describes an alternative course of action to be taken to put things right in the country. And we are working while seated in the opposition side of the aisle as a independent group expressing our views on what is going on.
Mr. Gunasekara, you say that 41 members of the SLPP broke away from the party, sat independently in Parliament. Professor Vitarana, yes. When I look at the numbers, I like to go with the numbers, Professor Vitarana, when it comes to the Parliament, because it's very apt for us to look at the numbers and look at the future. So let's say there are 50 members of the UNP who voted in favor of Dalla Salah Peruma's candidature in Parliament, and there were 41 members of the independent parties who voted in favor of Dalla Salah Peruma. I'll come back to you in a minute. And then you have 10 members of the TNA who probably would have or would not have voted. The Dalla Salah Peruma's candidacy would have at least got 101 members voting in favor of him, but only was able to garner 82.
Yes.
Something went wrong.
Yes.
What went wrong?
Well, that of course is, shall we say, a matter for speculation, maybe of a matter for financial speculation. Put it that way.
I know this is not a fair question to ask Professor Vitarana, but I'm still going to ask you, who did you support?
Sorry?
Who did you support?
I supported Dallas, and actually, when we drew up a list of people who are going to support Dallas, it exceeded the 113 minimum required. It was close to 120. I think it was 118, 119. assured votes that were going to be given to him. But then I think the other forces, as I told you, financial forces also have come into operation. Large sums of money have been mentioned. So perhaps that accounts for the change in numbers.
But they could have very well accepted the money and voted in favor of Dara Salapirima. No one would know. No one would know.
Well, and that of course, I don't know, you'll have to ask them, but this is the assumption.
So when you look at the formation of an all-party government, we saw the manner in which how G.L. Pires, who seconded who proposed the name of Dara Salapirima at the parliament with regard to the position of presidency, was stripped off his portfolio, and that portfolio was given to Ali Sabri, the new Minister of Foreign Affairs. Now you are saying very openly, Professor Vitarana, that you voted in favor of Dara Salapirima as well. So I'm presuming you are not in this all-party government that is going to be created anytime soon.
No, let me put it this way. The country is in crisis. There is a feeling that both government, opposition, people should get together and work out all-party government that construct an all-party government that will, without squabbling among themselves, get together and work out a way to get the country out of the mess it is in. Now, the question there is that the way that was suggested by the 10-party group to which I also belong, was that there should be a meeting of all the party leaders. And all the party leaders from among themselves should come to some agreement and select a person to lead the country at this particular time. Now that was not done. What was done was arbitrarily the former president selected Ranil Wickremesinghe. And so the process of forming an all-party government should be one where the leadership is not already predetermined, but where all the party leaders get together and have a mutual exchange of views, and then from among themselves decide on who should be lead them. Because you see, in solving the problems of the country, it's not just the getting together of people or the heads that come together that matter. What matters is the policy that is going to be carried out by that government to solve the problems of the country. So there should be a dialogue where there is an exchange of views and a set of policies are worked out which everyone agrees to support. And on that basis you build a all-party government. So that process has not taken place, where, for instance, that's what I would have expected should have been done.
So do you think the appointment of Dinesh Gunawardena as the Prime Minister was not a prudent decision?
No, I think it was a wise decision. I agree with that, because he's a person who holds the respect of, I think, all the members of Parliament. He has conducted himself in various capacities with dignity and impartiality. So he is a suitable person to be Prime Minister. But
the President is a big
question
question
of Ranil Wickremesinghe is a different one, because as you know, not only the in Parliament, but in the country itself, there is a large measure of opposition to him as a leader.
So, do you believe that Ranil Wickremesinghe will solve the crisis facing the country today?
No, I don't.
That's a very positive, very firm no.
Yes.
Who is the leader who could steer the country?
No, you see, it's not only, as I told you, it's not only the question of the leader. It's a question of the policies that are agreed upon and which a suitable leader should be chosen from among those who, the party leaders who get together, to be the leader based on the implementation of those policies.
So, Professor Vitarana, if you are invited as an individual, you are the leader of the LSSP, would you accept a ministerial portfolio under Ranil Wickremesinghe and join an all-party government?
Well, as I told you, now if you start from the position where he is the leader and get a group of MPs together, maybe from different political parties, as you suggest, even then, I think that's not the way in which it should be done. Particularly, I haven't that degree of confidence in him for various reasons. Because politically, I hold different points of view from him. And from the point of view of the national interest, I look upon him as a representative of who has, shall we say, close ties with Western countries which do not have the best interests of our country at heart.
Professor Vitarana, did you receive the letter that was sent out by Ranil Wickremesinghe to all parliamentarians requesting them to join?
No, I didn't receive that. I must
you didn't receive it?
No.
So only selected people have received it?
I don't know. What I can say is...
I have not received it.
Huh?
I have not received it.
No,
I have... Yeah.
You have received.
You have not received it.
I haven't received. In fact, I would have liked to have received it and gone through it, but
probably he selects. He does not select a people of a certain vintage.
Probably.
So we leave it at that. First
I
round.
hope you mean political vintage.
Political vintage. I'll leave it at that as far as the first round is concerned. I want to open the floor for questions. Ultimately only flanked with Shehan today. I thought you would also isolate me to Shehan. I will be all by myself posing questions to the panelists today, but it's all yours.
Thank you, Shamir. I'd like to pose my first question to Mr. Farman Qasim. Mr. Qasim, what is the position of the Samakhi Jana Balavega in terms of the state of emergency as a party?
So of course we oppose the state of emergency, because we don't see that there is a need for emergency. The need for the proclamation of emergency was to safeguard the mandateless president that we have today, and to crush the peaceful dissent of the people. So we oppose the proclamation of emergency, and also it has far-reaching consequences, and it's not only affect Sri Lanka within Sri Lanka. The emergency also affects our travel advisories abroad. Now we are looking to kickstart our economy with the low-hanging fruits are the tourism industry. So if we want the tourists to come now, when we have the emergency, how are the tourists going to come? They are going to red flag the emergency. So now the petrol issues are trying to be sorted out. So it is basically a chain effect. So we opposed the emergency, and that's why it was clear that we voted against the emergency.
But we did notice that there were members from the SJB who seemed to vote in favor of extending the emergency.
Not the members who are with us. There were certain members who have left our ranks and joined the government. They voted for the emergency, but other than that, all 50 other MPs
There are
voted.
some who say that although there may not be a state of emergency in terms of the rule of law, there is an emergency in terms of a food emergency. There is an emergency in terms of a requirement for fuel and other essential goods. Would you agree with that position?
Yeah, there's emergency in the economy. Total economy is in collapse. I mean, we are basically a failed state now. So there's emergency all four corners of the country. But that doesn't entail that you need to pass a proclamation for emergency for public order. I mean, that's absurd to draw that reference here. So the emergency is for when there's mutiny or there's some sort of during the war times, yes. But this, like I said, was to protect the mandateless president and to crush the peaceful dissent. So that's why I said earlier also, I wish and I pray and hope it doesn't happen, that this doesn't end up like the French Revolution. You know, we mustn't keep on playing games with the public. And when Parliament keeps on playing games like, people lose confidence in Parliament, which is a very dangerous thing. We shouldn't even think about it. So there is emergency in the country. There is an emergency in the country in the sense of economic emergency. So you don't need to pass proclamation of emergency like you have done now. So to get over that, we in fact have to open our doors for anyone and everyone to come into the country and have a peaceful environment. And also you can have law and order by applying the normal laws. Here what we are doing is we have passed emergency and selecting the leaders of the dissent and arresting them without a warrant. You can arrest them now. And just basically that's the purpose of the emergency. So what Ranil Wickremesinghe thinks is he can take out the leaders of the take the leaders out of the Aragalaya, and then get them and intimidate them, and he can then dilute the protest. That's not going to happen. What he must realize is, I mean, he never had the pulse of the people. 90% of the Aragalaya was organic. So they might give him a bit of a honeymoon time, and then it's going to blow up again. So you must be able to read the pulse of the people. I mean,
So do you think, Farman, that the Aragalaya represents the people more so than the Parliament?
Whether the Aragalaya, yeah. So it's like this. Parliament represented people at that particular time in 2019. It's a clear mandate and clear people's mandate. At the moment, I feel, my personal opinion, and from what I feel, I mean, you can never be sure, but you only can test it at an election. It seems that the Parliament now, the way they are voting, does not, I'm talking about the majority, when you get majorities, they seem like they're not voting with the people's mandate as such. I mean, the mandate, they're still voting at the 2019 mandate. You have that SLPP block of 146, which is now, we have honorable professors group have moved out. A small group, other 120 or 130 will vote and carry on. So I think they are not voting with the people's people at heart.
But there's rumors in the grapevine saying that individuals in the caliber of Vimal Veeravansa who voted in favor of the emergency regulations, Udega Mampila as well as Vasudeva Nanayakkara, may accept ministerial portfolios under Ranil Wickremesinghe as the president?
So that's why I said there are games going on. This is very dangerous. It's becoming a circus. When that happens, people lose confidence. Like the honorable professor also said. See, I told you earlier when I was saying the national government means you draw up a policy, 10 items. You draw up an agenda and say this president doesn't have a mandate. No, this parliament, in my opinion, has lost its mandate. So we are looking at an election, maybe 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years. I don't know when. So we draw up an agenda and say we have to sort out the economy. These are the 10 points we are going to do. We need a cabinet of 5 or 10. And we don't need a cabinet of 25 or 15 even. We need to sort out the economy. So what do we need? We need a finance minister. We need a foreign minister. We need a foreign energy minister. We need about 10 or 5. And we sort these things out and go for election. You put in the agenda and then you get the best people among all parties to be in the government. That's how you do a national government. You don't just dole out ministry. This is bribery. Honorable professor was mild in what he said. I said this is bribery, not only in rupees, also in portfolios. So again, you're taking this country down a very dangerous path.
Yeah.
People are got sick of this. So we must, politicians must understand that.
So I know, Farman, it's no point of talking about spilt milk, but it's very important to revisit what happened in the past few weeks in terms of the appointment of the presidency. Do you think that if Sajid Premadasa came forward and accepted the position of Prime Minister, the present crisis would have been eased somewhat?
You can't accept, no, you have to be, the Prime Minister has to command the majority of the House. That's how it works. So if you don't have the majority of the House, you can't be Prime Minister. And you have to be confident that you have the majority of the House. Right? So the same thing that happened where the 120 were to vote for Dallas Araparama and then only 82 voted, would have happened if Sajid Premadasa became Prime Minister.
Right.
And the next day he would have been had to go home. So that's why he set forth 4 conditions and told His Excellency President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at that time, these are my 4 conditions, and on those conditions I will accept.
So I'm getting a lot of questions from our viewers on the number 0766 565353. We have another question for Mr. Gunasekara as well. Now the emergency regulations are on. However, we see that a number of people have been gunned down in the recent past, the number being 2 yesterday. In a situation like that, is there really action being taken on the front in terms of emergency?
Action in the sense?
Action in the sense, making sure that no drug trafficking takes place, no murders takes place, no broad light shootings takes place. Isn't that also part of emergency at the end of the day, to ensure that there's a peaceful country in the
it has to be, but unfortunately it's not reflected. It has to be, but it's not reflective now. I mean, surely people are being gunned down broad daylight, which is very bad, which is a very bad sign, I feel.
And I heard yesterday the police spokesperson went on to say that they cannot fulfill their duties because there is a petrol and a diesel shortage in the country. And because of those reasons, it's not as easy as possible, which the activities that they used to do before is not streamlined now because of the present fuel crisis in the country. Is that an answer that you could buy, Mr. Gunasekara, coming from the police department?
In fairness, the police also face stiff opposition at petrol stations, I must say that. They also face stiff opposition.
Now?
No, in the past.
Yeah, in the past, but not before, but now people are protesting, and now there's a QR code system that has been...
No. Last 2 months they have faced stiff opposition, even the police. So that could be a reason.
But at least the government should have a proper mechanism to ensure that peace is always safeguarded, isn't it?
Correct. Correct. That's very important. Peace is safeguarded, and you don't go after the Aragale people. That is also important. No?
Even today, one person was arrested.
Yeah? I mean, these are not good signs, because you got to understand that as a result of the Aragale, the cabinet has gone, the president has gone, the prime minister has gone. If that is wrong, then in that case, Gotabaya Rajapaksa has to come back. That's what I feel. So he has to come back.
So he will come back?
Yeah. He has to come back. Say, he has to be the president? No. Because by taking these people into custody, what are you trying to show? What are you trying to say? That your opposition was wrong, and it's your wrong actions that made the president go home, that the prime minister went home, and the cabinet went home. Argue it that way.
But because Professor Vitarana, Mr. Gunasekara spoke about how the Aragale transpired and what is happening right now, I want to talk to you about the proroguing of Parliament as well, at a very decisive time where the former Central Bank Governor Ajit Nivad Cabral, former Treasury Secretary Dr. P.V. Jayasundara were to be summoned to the COPE committee to give evidence with regard to what happened to the economic mismanagement in the country. It was a very decisive time, and at that very moment, President Ranil Wickremesinghe prorogued Parliament. When you look at that, do you think that the president is trying to safeguard a certain section of the society who probably put him or pushed him to become the president as well?
There is a strong possibility because by the act of proroguing Parliament, not only COPA, of which I was chairman, has also been dissolved. And now he is in a position to appoint whoever he wants as a future membership of COPA and COPA. So now we were looking into, and we actually detected a large number of shortcomings which were taking place in the whole administrative apparatus, and also being influenced by the political stratum. And for just to give an example, as chairman of COPA, I was supposed to submit at the end of the last term of Parliament a report. Actually, I had so much material that I had to submit three reports. And those were matters which were to be addressed by the particular ministers concerned. And so now all that comes to naught as a result of what has been done.
But what's going to transpire on the 3rd of August, Professor, with your experience? Would there be a swearing in of several more ministries as far as an all-party government is concerned, because there is talk and discussions with regard to the appointment of a new cabinet of ministers as well?
Frankly, I have no idea because I have not been involved in any of those things, and like you, I can speculate, but I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. But I think the way things are being done is not conducive to uniting the nation
together, bringing them together.
Starting with the political leadership, which is essential at this time.
Now we're going behind countries to find loans, Professor Vitarana. We're talking to the IMF, we're talking to other countries to see ways in which we can salvage the nation at the moment. But there were many corrupt activities in the country during the recent past. The garlic scam that was spoken about, the central bank bond controversy that was spoken about, then the sugar scam that was spoken about, all that and more. Why don't we tap to these resources or corrupt activities that took place in Sri Lanka at one point and try to salvage the money that we lost as a nation?
I mean, the people who should have monitored that, who are responsible for that area, and should be held responsible for what has happened, for neglect of duty, because you see, there is a division of labor in any society, and responsibilities are placed on different individuals to look after different sectional interests. So if the people in charge of the sugar and various things like that have not fulfilled their role properly, then appropriate action should have been taken against those responsible.
We are now trying to take action against the former governor of the central bank. We are now trying to take action against the former secretary to the president. We are now trying to take action against the treasury secretary. And during all this time, the parliament has been prorogued, Professor Vitarana. Look at what's happening in the country at the moment.
Yeah.
Isn't that a pity itself?
Yeah, I think it should not have been prorogued. And this has created more problems, quite unnecessary.
So Farman, today when I was when I was told by Shehan that you were going to come on the show tonight, I quickly went and researched about the tweets that you've made in the recent past, and I came across a tweet that was made on your wall, and it said, "If one can't be decisive at crucial moments, one can't be a leader. If one lives in fear of losing one's position, one is not a leader." Now this struck to me very quickly, and it reminded me of how important leadership is, not only in a political party, but as a country as well. Do you see that leadership in your present leader?
Of course. I mean, like I always said, I mean, look at first of all, let me correct you, Shamir, about this all-party. You keep on saying about this all-party government. Ranil Wickremesinghe doling out ministries is not an all-party government.
I fully agree with you on that.
It's a government reeking with corruption and bad faith. And it's going down a dangerous path. So it's not an all-party government. If he poaches another two from the SJB, poaches another one from the TNA or whatever, poaches another one from the JVP, theoretically you say, it's not an all-party government. It's just a government just to safeguard himself. Bribed MPs with ministerial portfolios and taken the country down a very dangerous path. So I'll correct you there first. With regards to leadership, obviously Rajit Premadasa, I mean, has been in politics for 20 years. Started off in the Hambantota district where he had no connection whatsoever. Won the district in 2000 when the UNP lost the election at that time. Won the district in 2001. And of course, when your party does not have power, you lose hold there. And also, we are the only opposition in the country today, or in the history of Sri Lanka, subject to correction, but I don't think I'll be corrected, that has done something tangible to the people by our Sakwala and Husma projects. So he's leading the way and walking the talk, and has always taken decisive decisions. In the sense, it would have been very easy for him to say, "I'll become Prime Minister, go after position." He never did that. So he has certain amount of principles, he has certain amount of ethics in him, in his politics, and people should now learn to appreciate that, because over a period of time in the recent past, we have got used to castigating politicians, and sometimes justifiably, because politicians behave in a very bad manner. I mean, very few, honorable professor and a few you can segment them into a very small catchment area. The others have been just it's very sad to see.
Farman, I did not in any way incline to say that there is an all-party government in play right now. Our topic of discussion today is, can an all-party government solve the problems that Sri Lanka is facing? So that's the topic. So we probably may be referring to the all-party government which needs to be formed, but we are not in any way saying that there is an all-party government now, despite the fact that two members of the SJB has crossed over, that is Harin Fernando and Manushala Naikara. Two members of the SLFP has crossed over, Mahinda Amaravira and Nimal Siripal de Silva today has been cleared. So he has not technically crossed over, but he has not accepted any ministerial position yet. Okay. But Susil Premajayanta, so we are not in any way saying that this is an all-party government. What we're trying to say is, will an all-party government be the solution to the country's crisis?
So that's why I said all-party government. How do you create an all-party government? That's why first of all, you have to draw up an agenda of what the all-party government is going to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have an agenda of what we are going to do. Then you discuss among, like the Honorable Professor said, among the party leaders, and you come to a consensus. Because this president has no people's mandate. No, he can't dole out ministries and run as if he's the president. He's there.
He's the president.
He's the president, but without winning his own seat in Colombo. So there's a thing called legal and moral. No, you can do something legal which is not moral and ethical. So if you have no conscience, if you have crocodile skin, and if you have no conscience, you don't care tuppence for the country, you can do what you want then. So this is what's happening. So he has to understand, and he will never understand that. But unfortunately, that he is in here for a temporary period, and he has to get the consensus of all the leaders and do it, but that's not going to happen. So even if he poaches another two on the third and some other MPs of other opposition parties, it's not going to be an all-party government.
So if that's not going to happen, as you said, Mr. Qasim, then is election the answer?
Election is obviously the answer, but elections when is also another question. I mean, whether we can have an election now is questionable. So it's a very difficult question to answer. But I feel at the moment the way Ranil Wickremesinghe is behaving, that elections is the answer. But then the SLPP won't allow that.
You also spoke about crossovers, and you were talking about poaching MPs to form an all-party government.
Not all-party government, poaching MPs to form a government to protect himself. Not an all. We always get into this. It's not an all-party government.
For the longest time, there has been many people who have been crying for, well, in fact, these protests have been calling for system change, and one of the reform suggestions has been to put a stop to crossovers, to prevent political party members from crossing over. Is this not a good time to make this happen, Mr. Qasim? What is being done in that sense to bring these reforms into action?
So what we have done is we suggested a 21st Amendment. We brought in a 21st Amendment which we tabled in Parliament, and we went up to the Supreme Court. There we have said that, at least try to minimize that when you cross the floor, that you can't take over ministerial portfolios or deputy ministerial portfolios, and that the party, and the process that will make it easier to expel members from the party. So those amendments are there in our suggested 21st Amendment. So we are all for that. I mean, we are all for that. In India, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have to cross over with 20. You can't cross over alone. So it's like a conscience vote. Say 20 or more have to cross the floor, if I'm not mistaken.
Farman, I know that you're a staunch supporter of the current leader of the SJB as well as the leader of the opposition, but if you look at the last few months, there have been many breakaways from the SJB. Individuals like Partey Champik Ranawaka, who was a strongman of the SJB, had left and is now having his own political force. We have individuals like Sarath Fonseca who have expressed differing views than the SJB leadership. Then we saw Manusha Nanaikara and Harin Fernando also leaving the political party on the basis that the leader was our side Bayai as well. So there have been some breakaways. The leadership of the SJB have not been able to keep the people in unison with one voice to take advantage of the struggle that was taking place in the country. Can we say that?
So that's what I kept on saying. I mean, what advantage can you take out of the struggle? The struggle did what it had to do. It took out, like Kesra said, it took out the president, it took out the prime minister, it took out the whole cabinet. So struggle did, but didn't envisage a mandateless president coming in. But with regards to the SJB, in any political party, you get people with different opinions and different views. I mean, that's the democratic process. And in a group of even 5 or 6, you'll have different opinions. So people have different opinions, different agendas. Everybody thinks, most of them think that they can become president. So in every party, from time immemorial, democratic political parties have a difference between their members. With regards to the statement by Harin Fernando and Manusha, those are very immature statements, at the heat of the moment, very immature statements. They will say and they'll just go, let's just ready to cross the floor, no? Where Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca is concerned, Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca always has a lot to say, but he's with the party. He's our chairman, and the good Field Marshal says what he has to say. So he has sometimes he has his own opinion. He's a lion among all of us. No? He is a respected figure, and sometimes he feels that we have to listen to him. Like in the army. So sometimes we tell him that we are having a democratic discussion among 30 or 40. Sometimes he wants his will always there. So we have to explain to him that sometimes it can't happen that way. So, and where Champik Ranawaka is concerned, he's still with the party. He has his own 43 brigade that's going on and doing so. And also you must understand that Champik belongs to another different party. He had a party of his own and he joined the coalition. So at a particular time, he might decide to go on his own or join us.
So everyone almost have a lot of ambitions to become the president of Sri Lanka one day.
Yes, I mean, every politician, I suppose, worth his salt would want to have an ambition. No? I mean, otherwise they wouldn't get into politics. A lot of politicians getting in worth their salt, they would want to be president one day. That's the highest that you can achieve as a good politician.
Yeah. Professor Jana, because we're talking about, Farman is talking about respected people, you are one of the respected politicians or parliamentarians right now in Parliament. You've been very vociferous with regard to what has been going on in the country. Why did you join the Rajapaksas?
No.
There were times and opportunities that you could have walked out. There were times and opportunities that you could have voted against certain amendments, like the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, for an example. But you did not do so. Why?
No, you see, the point is this, that we were having an alliance of the left-inclined members of Parliament with a large section of the SLFP, which was the dominant political force at that time. And therefore, we had to come to a certain understanding. We had to make compromises and so on in the interest of, as far politically, we regard the UNP as our main enemy. We regard both internal politics as well as international politics, because our interpretation is that they represent the interests of the Western powers in this country, while they also represent what we signify as the capitalist class. So now we have to build a group that will oppose those policies which we consider as anti-national, which are against the interests of the people. And in doing that, we had to form alliances with those who, especially SLFP in particular, we, as you well know, for a long time in our history, the LSSP and CP joined up with the SLFP and formed a centre-left alliance to fight the UNP. So that trend in politics is still there, though to a lesser extent, but that tendency still prevails.
Professor Vitarna, I recollect during the latter stages of the Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Mahinda Rajapaksa tenure in office, Vasudeva Nanayakkara went on to say that in the event that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa goes and joins hands with the IMF to get assistance, that he would walk out. But right now, we see that the government has got engaged with the IMF with regard to approximately around $3 to $4 billion US as aid from the monetary body. Do you think that Vasudeva Nanayakkara will join hands with the all-party government, because you are very close, you are among the 11 members who initially sat out as well? Has the minister, the foreign minister, inclined anything to you with regard to him joining?
No, frankly, I have
the all-party government.
I am unable to answer your question, you see, because we have not discussed that particular issue. Right. But for instance, our group, Vasudeva is also a member of that group of the 10 political parties which have worked together, discussed together in the present political setup. But you see, the issue you're raising about multi-party government is going to be faced with a lot of contradictions. And certainly I personally would not include Ranil Wickremesinghe and UNP in that. I would think of the other parties getting together. Just to give a concrete example, the UNP and Ranil Wickremesinghe are for opening the door for foreign goods to freely come into the country. Now, our point of view is that we must try to curtail that to the minimum so that we the loss of dollars, foreign exchange is minimized, and on the other side we must try to build up a national economy, really, which is not dependent on foreign powerful nations.
But we don't have an option.
No, I think we certainly have an option. If we are determined to build up our country through our own efforts and form a government that will be devoted to that, I think we'll get a response from our people. There will be a complete change in attitude. You see, the attitude now is like go begging to foreign governments, to agencies, NGOs, anybody, and get money, which I think is disgraceful. We must stand up on our own feet. We must build up our national economy. In doing that, we may need to negotiate with others, but do so on an equal footing, but not as beggars.
Professor Jana, why do I get the feeling that I've heard such a statement being made by individuals in the caliber of Basil Rajapaksa at the last year's November budget? Why do I get the feeling that you are expressing similar sentiments like Ajit Niwad Kabral when he introduced the roadmap to domestically source funds to Sri Lanka, and that system or that mechanism didn't work for the country, and ultimately we had to rely on the international community, and we are in this situation, mind you, Professor Tarana, we are in this situation because of most of the politicians and the actions in which they took to steer this country in terms of governance. It's not the people. People have only voted.
Now, there is a question of leadership involved here. There is a question of honest leadership involved here. And there is a question of leadership that is predominantly national-minded and is interested in developing our country. Unless you have that, we are not going to succeed.
Similar things were said, Professor, when President Gotabaya Rajapaksa announced that organic or chemical fertilizer should be banned and that Sri Lanka should switch to organic fertilizer, because there was a thought process that we need to stop importing these fertilizers because we can do it in Sri Lanka, in this country itself. So your thinking doesn't seem to be very different from that.
Sorry?
Your thinking doesn't seem to be very different from that.
No. You see the point in this. Now, I don't agree with what he did, because the process of change from chemical fertilizer to organic anywhere in the world has been a gradual process, right? You can't do that suddenly. And I'm sorry to say, my view is that the president at that time didn't get the necessary advice from experts who knew the subject. He was emotionally motivated in trying to be self-sufficient in with regard to fertilizer in our country. That was a progressive sentiment. But on the other hand, it has to be practical. It has to be something that is workable. So this is where we need to have a combination not only of political decision makers. The political decision makers must act with the people who have the know-how to take the correct decisions. Now that process was not done.
Mr. Gunasekara, right now I think the elephant in the room is the SLFP, because everyone is waiting what Maithripala Sirisena as a former president would do as far as the country is concerned and the decisions that he would take in the next few days. Because from all the political parties, I get the feeling, Mr. Gunasekara, that it is the SLFP that has not taken a very strong stand. It has always been a bit wobbly here and there. It's always been not a concrete stand. Why is that?
Well, he has said that he is for a all-party government.
No, he is for an all-party government.
Yeah, but that has not. Those discussions have not taken place.
But
I don't think the discussions have taken place.
But what is now? Let's say when
all-party government does not mean
Yeah.
that the president or the prime minister sits and chooses the cabinet and say, okay, this is all party. No, that is rubbish.
No, that is understood now. That Sir Farman and Professor Vitar was also articulating that we totally understand from Mr. Gunasekara. But what we don't understand is the position of the SLFP. Now, you all have working committee meetings,
Central committee meetings,
at least a fortnight, right?
once a month.
Once a month. During these meetings, what is the sentiment of the SLFP Central Committee members? What do they tell President Maithripala Sirisena during these meetings? And you are also one of the members.
Yeah, of course, there are various views that are being expressed by the Central Committee members. Some in support, some against, I must say. That is always the case.
And
So it's not an easy decision to take as a leader. It's not an easy decision. It's not that everybody is on one side. No, that's not the case.
But who makes the final call? Is it President Maithripala Sirisena or is it General Secretary Dayasri Jayasekara? Or both of them together takes the decision?
I suppose both of them must be finally deciding as to what the course of action
But
should be.
is that decision the sentiment of the Central Working Committee, the majority?
No, the majority decision of the Central Committee.
Majority
I must,
decision.
yes.
It has always
He has
been.
always respected that. I must be fair on that.
So the majority of the people say, most of the time, don't tell the media what the decision is. Just say that we will wait and see what the policy is. Is that the decision of the Central Working Group? That's the feeling that I get.
No,
because
no,
there is no concrete. There has never been a concrete decision, Mr. Gunasekara. Now, at one point, when the appointment of the president came in, Dayasri Jayasekara went on to say that we will appoint Dala Salha Peruma as our candidate as far as the SLFP is concerned. But Maithripala Sirisena a completely different comment a few days later. So you tend to figure out what is the political stand of the SLFP. Does the SLFP have a political stand?
Of course, they have a political
What is the political stand?
They have a political stand, all right. Because they have said right from the beginning, when this Aragale started, that you have to understand, you have to take into consideration the concerns of the Aragale if you have to move forward, because that is building up in a big way. So that was the stand taken by the SLFP.
So, President Maithripala Sirisena and Ranil Wickremesinghe met a few days before the vote came in. Are you privy to the discussions that they had?
No, I was not aware of that discussion. They had a meeting recently after all those things.
So what was the meeting about?
That was with regard to this initial discussion with regard to the all party. He said, look here, everybody has to agree.
You've already poached 2 people from our side.
Pardon?
You've already poached 2 people from our side.
I know what he said.
Right.
He had said, look here, all parties will have to agree, have to come to some agreement as to what we are going to do and what are the minimum areas that we are going to tackle, minimum number of ministries. He has said all those things.
And President Ranil Wickremesinghe has given a year.
He has said, yes, we'll discuss this.
When?
That's left to be seen. As I said, no. Everybody needs to understand all parties, not to pick and choose from various parties and then say to the all party, no, they're not going to work. You need agreement. And the only way agreement has to come is where the party leaders come into agreement. That's the only way. As Professor Tisrisana said.
So I'm going to pose a general question for the 3 of you because today's topic is on the subject of an all-party government. Is an all-party government the solution to Sri Lanka's crisis? So let's start off with Professor Vitarana.
As I told you, the all-party government must be based on a common set of policies. Now there is considerable differences of view regarding various policy matters. So we have to come together. Now, for instance, as we all know, even within a given political party, there are differences on matters of policy. There are hot arguments and discussions going on. So when we are going to get several parties with different policies to come together, there will have to be a period where we have to come to a consensus, really. And we must focus. Now, for instance, there are immediate problems, urgent problems, which need to be addressed. There are medium-term and longer-term policy issues also. So that totality should be also considered in reaching agreement. That process has to be a serious process where there is shall we say, a proper exchange of views, discussion, a certain amount of give and take, and then prioritization in the best interest of the country, and that should be done irrespective of petty party interests and should be based on the needs of the people.
Professor Tarana, before I move on to Farman and Mr. Gunasekar, who is the right person to lead the country at this decisive moment in Sri Lanka? Who is the right person within the members of parliament?
No, you see,
because there was talk that Gotabaya Rajapaksa had initially offered the post of Prime Minister to Sajid Premadasa, and there is also talk about Sajid Premadasa not accepting it, putting down. We saw a letter being issued by Sajid Premadasa at that time, which was on a Wednesday or a Thursday, I'm not really sure, saying that if you agree on these principles, we would accept the portfolio. Then Gotabaya Rajapaksa said, it's too late, we've already decided to give it to Ranil Wickremesinghe. So there were a lot of events that transpired. In your experience as a politician and as a parliamentarian, you say that Ranil Wickremesinghe is not the person to take us out of this crisis. If so, who is the person?
He is not the person.
You said initially when I asked you a question, whether Ranil Wickremesinghe can take us out of the crisis, you said no.
Out of the crisis, sorry. Yeah.
You said no, but
no,
if so, who's the option?
Yeah, you see, because as I told you, he's got too much of, shall we say, alliances abroad, as well as among a certain class of people in our society who do not reflect the interests and the needs of the majority of the people in the country. So we have to build up, shall we say, an agreement of the leaders of the mass of the people, and the current opinions of the people also have to be taken into consideration. As you all were discussing earlier, the problems have changed from what they were earlier. There are new problems, new issues which have to be taken into consideration, and the discussion should focus on the current situation. So all that should be a process which is set in motion.
But you can't just name someone who could take the lead.
I think in the process of discussing these things and coming together and reaching a measure of understanding, the most suitable person to lead at that particular time on the basis of the agreement on policy matters will arise. There will be a consensus among people. I think individual political ambitions shouldn't be the criterion on which the fate of a nation is determined.
So I just got a question, Professor Vitarana, on the number 0766565353. The question is, Professor Vitarana, you speak about Ranil Wickremesinghe and you speak about honest leadership. Do you think Ranil Wickremesinghe is an honest leader?
You know of certain allegations, certain incidents which have been made very public. So I would be inclined to answer you in the negative.
Right. So, Farman, your thoughts. Is an all-party government the solution to Sri Lanka's crisis?
See, the crisis is now 15 or 16 people have died in queues. We are bankrupt. As a nation, we are bankrupt. 15 people have died in petrol queues. We only saw these on TV in our young days in some African state. So we have come down to that, to that level. Now's not the time for experimenting and giving our views on various things. So now we have only one choice. There is no other choice remaining. Whether we like it or not, we have to go to the IMF. That is not what we are saying. What anybody says, that is the only thing we can do. So we can talk theories till the cows come home, but we won't get out of this mess otherwise. So there's only few things that we can do theoretically. The governor of central bank is a top central banker. So he also has laid out we have to go to the IMF. A staff level agreement is needed ASAP. We have a finance minister in Ranil Wickremesinghe for the last 4 months who has failed to do so. Now, if that should have been done in 3 weeks, if he was working day, noon and night, everybody is missing the point that he was appointed finance minister 4 months ago.
But
the staff level, the staff level.
I need to be the devil's advocate here. So, because there is no representation directly from the UNP, but it takes time, isn't it? Now, going to the IMF also.
No, what I'm saying is you have to come up. No, you have to come up with
6 months. So
no, so first of all, you have to come up with a debt sustain. So that's what I'm saying. The process, no, you have to come up with a debt sustainability plan. In that debt sustainability plan entails certain things. What does it entail? It entails giving in simple terms, let's say no giving government jobs, no giving raises, right? then SOEs to be reformed or nationalized or privatized or whatever you may call it.
But even today, they said that they are going to they are going to reform or restructure the Ceylon Electricity Board as well.
So many things you have to do. So you have to make those hard decisions. Now, why haven't we done those hard decisions yet? Is he looking for another political lifeline? But those are unpopular decisions. Those unpopular decisions will obviously, if you contest an election, then the results will show. Because like you say, anti-nationalistic or not people-friendly or whatever it is, right? So those 4 months he was a finance minister. Now what has he done so far? So those things are basic things that you should have done to get this debt sustainability plan and the staff level agreement. Staff level agreement will take 6 months. But the first thing is you have to give a debt sustainability plan. Today on Bloomberg, the news article is that we are not given a debt sustainability plan yet. So where are we heading? We are just leading the blind. Just going on. So these are the first little things we have to do. So those are, I said, those have to be in the agenda. Once we put down those in the agenda, then the parliament can sit around and decide. The SJB is the main opposition. So it's the SJB and the SLPP that have to sit and decide that we are going to do these things. And among them, then, like Honorable Professor said, a leader will emerge. So we have to first put those things down before we say a national government will be the solution. First, we have to decide that we have to use the debt sustainability plan. The debt sustainability plan will entail these things. Reforming of the SOEs. Not only the electricity board, so many things. So Sri Lankan Airlines is a burden. 80% of the population have not stepped into a plane. They are paying 384 million or 84 million rupees a day for Sri Lankan Airlines. 80% of our population have not stepped into a plane. What a crime this is. And who's paying? We are paying. You and I and everybody. At least we have got into a plane. 80% of the population have not got into a plane. So you have to come up with these hard decisions, put these down and say these are the things we are going to do. Then in parliament we decide, okay, these are the things we are going to do. Now let's form this government. That's how you do it. Otherwise, there is no solution. The only solution is you first put down A, B, C, D. This is the solution for the country. And 15, 16 people, who is going to pay for these 16 deaths? Somebody is responsible. The government is obviously responsible. We are taking it very lightly. This is we have to accept the fact. We have failed state. 16 people dying in a queue means, I mean, any other country there would be. I mean, we've tried for treason, the leaders. So at the moment now, at least now it's not too late that we understand the seriousness, the gravity of the situation, and take it very seriously.
Do you think that the government is still not taking it seriously when it came to the issues that you're talking about, lack of fuel, lack of gas, people dying at queues?
Of course, I'm telling you this. These are people who want to hold on to power. They don't want to let go. They are leading us where they are going in the next couple of years. I don't know where they are heading, but like everybody talks about in Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew was 36 years when he became Prime Minister. Right? So high time now, these people have to move on and let the next generation rule. There are parliamentarians who have 10 years on parliament, who are very efficient, who have been there, can take decisions. These people now, the Prime Minister is, no disregard to Professor, but the Prime Minister is 73. The President is 73. The former President is now over 76. He was Prime Minister, President. So this is going around. And they are now, just safeguarding themselves. So that has to end. There are enough experienced parliamentarians in their 40s and 50s in parliament today, in both parties. So it's high time you give it over to them and tell them, now you carry this country forward, because they are the leaders of the country. They are the ones who can decide. They are the ones who are thinking clearly. They are the ones with the ability. Everywhere in the world, if America can be headed by a person in his 40s, twice over, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, everywhere in the world. At least Biden has Kamala Harris as number 2. I mean, these people are just taking our country forward and going down the precipice. So I don't see a very bright future with this governing structure at the moment.
Mr. Gunasekara, what are your thoughts?
Shami, the issue is we have a serious problem because on the one hand you have economic crisis. On the other hand, people are not happy with anything that is going on. So unless you bring sanity to the country, nothing is going to move forward. The question is as to whether we are in a position to bring sanity. The way things are going, it doesn't appear that there is sanity coming on the way, at least. That's what I see. We have to understand it's not an easy exercise. We are in serious trouble. We don't have foreign exchange. Our economy has more or less collapsed. And we are a failed state, as he says. I mean, we are fundamentally unable to pay our debts. Bankrupt. I mean, it's bankruptcy, nothing else. But with all that, we still can figure out a way of coming out of this. And those could be very, very unpopular decisions that you should take, one should take. Is the present president and is the present prime minister willing to take those unpopular decisions? That's number one. And number two, what is the all-party government agreeing on? What are the main areas, the key areas? It can't be 50, 10, 15 items. And what is the minimum cabinet? That's all. If they can agree and go in with all the, because I'll tell you one thing, IMF will want so many changes. Huh? Are we prepared to do that? Because most of them will be unpopular. But, I mean, some of these people who are in their 70s, for heaven's sake, agree and do something before you go. Do something before you go. Because you can't come back again. Huh? There is no way. That's the end of the road.
So do you think, Mr. Gunasekara, that Ranil Wickremesinghe is the man to steer the country in the next few years?
No, the question is this, it's not few years. What I feel is at this juncture, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 months, he needs to be supported. Huh? I always say that. But the question is, he has to come into an agreement with the opposition, main opposition, as to how he's going to run this country. And work on a program of activity, that's all.
So when there is political tug of war, even now in Parliament, the SJB is pulling from one side, the NPP is pulling from another side, the TNA is pulling from another side, the SLPP is pulling from another side, the SLFP, your party, does not know where to pull from.
No, we are not pulling anything.
We all don't know what to pull, which string to pull at the moment. So in a situation like that, Mr. Gunasekara, can you expect political parties to unite for a common cause, at least now?
No, they need to unite. At this juncture, they need to unite. But the question here is the leadership of the country willing to unite everybody and carry forward? But I'll tell you something, it's maximum 9 months. You need to go for an election. I don't know whether you two gentlemen agree with me.
I would agree on that.
You have to go for an election. Huh? There is no other way. Maximum is 9 months, you have to go for election. 9 months, take the unpopular route, do it so that that's it, you have done something. That's the only way.
Just to add to that, I would have said, if there were not, like in Italy, for Italy, if I am not mistaken, there was a technocrat who was appointed as Prime Minister, totally out from Parliament just to take these unpopular decisions. And he was chased out in about 4 months. It would have been good if we had a person, a total technocrat, just coming in and taking these unpopular decisions. Of course, those decisions agreed in Parliament by the parliamentarians itself. And we had a technocrat coming as president. That would have been the ideal world. But then, yeah, we always dream. And then we've gone for elections.
I'm trying to figure out, Farman, just because you said your last statement, I'm trying to figure out now, you are the legal secretary of the Samakhi Jana Balavega, and your leader was vying for the post of Prime Minister. Would he have taken those unpopular decisions?
He was not vying for the post of Prime Minister.
Of course, we all know if Dara Salapirima was the president, invariably the Prime Minister would be Dara Salapirima.
When there was a crisis, he said...
The question was very direct. The question was very direct. Now you say we should have a point.
So let me put it this way: if we were at the helm, would we have taken these unpopular decisions? Let me put it this way: we would have taken any decision that would have been in the best interest of the country, not looking at our political future. We have always done that. When we were in the UMP also, we took whatever decisions we had to take in the best interest of the country. Now we are the SJB, but we are a little bit different from the UNP now, which we are taking the best interest of the country in all spheres, whether it be national security, whether it will be the economy, whether if it's best interest of the country, yes, we will take those decisions, whether it's popular or unpopular.
Farman, tell me one decision that the UNP took during their time of governance, which was the right decision?
You talk about the Yahapalne time?
Yahapalne.
By Yahapalne time, we engaged with the IMF. We saw this coming. We saw the debt. We saw the debt that Mahinda Rajapaksa had taken. Even though Honorable Professor says that he's centre left, he was centre more than right, taking all the debts at commercial values. We saw this coming in. And to Mangala Samaravira's credit, I must say that he engaged the IMF for the 16th time, and the tax structure was reformed. So many good things were done where our fiscal policy was concerned. Our fiscal policy was very good. We raised our taxes to a very good level. We also brought in the petrol formula. If you followed that fiscal policy, we wouldn't be in this mess today. Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the SLPP government came and ruined everything. They are the one, basically, we had a problem then, but they are the ones who put us in this mess, fair and square, here, now, today.
But don't you think that the UNP is also somewhat responsible for what we're facing today? All parties.
So all parties have been responsible, no? Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this mess. Starting from 1940, all parties have done good things also. I won't say that all parties have done bad things. So even Mrs. B's time, there were good things and bad things. People talk about bad things, there were good things also. There were bad things also. So the free education is a good thing. Free healthcare is a good thing. A lot of good things also have happened. But all parties have contributed to this downfall.
Because when in 2016, when the general election was held and the 2015 presidential election, the UNP promised to bring those to book, those who were corrupt. And it was all about safeguarding individuals, a mistake. In 2019, when the April 21st attacks took place, the people in power should be held responsible. And it was the UNP and President Maithripala Sirisena who was in power. In terms of making sure that those who were perpetrators behind the April 21st attacks, the then government had ample time to investigate and bring those to book. They didn't do it. And today we heard the Cardinal, even yesterday, saying that there is no political will to bring those people to justice with regard to the April 21st attacks.
Yeah, so with regards to corruption and the April 21st are two different things.
Then there is the central bank bond controversy that took place.
So with regards to corruption, it's like this. You can't, see, if one person is deciding on whom to prosecute, that's not the correct way to do it. Right? Because you can have your favorites, you can have your not so favorites. And one person doing it, then there is no objective thought to it. But the only way you can do it is, like I brought this example of Lee Kuan Yew and Singapore. What he did was he had a standalone, very independent bribery commission, not only in name, but in style and form also. They were totally independent from the government. They had their own staff and they had enough resources. Right? So that is what we need to do. We need to form an independent bribery commission. We have in fact drafted those laws and we will be tabling it in Parliament because of all this political instability. We couldn't do it. We have, as the SJB, as a private member's bill, we have drafted the laws and we given it for translation to the translators at Parliament. We will be tendering that private member's bill to have a standalone bribery commission, which would have its own investigating officers, its own police officers, or whatever way you call it, and enough resources, and also we will be moving to be, it should be enshrined in the constitution as an enshrined clause. That is Mr. Adit Premdas's suggestion, enshrined clause that we have this standalone bribery commissions. That is where we will endeavor to stop corruption as such. Because just for saying we'll find that person, we'll prosecute that person, prosecute this person. I mean, who am I or who is the president to say we'll prosecute that person A, B or C? And what business has the president got to say, we will prosecute so and so and so and so? They know the president and the government has no business to do that. It is the independent bribery commission, nor the authorities have to do that. And where the April 21st incident, of course, the Easter bombing is concerned, of course, I think that was not enough time to get into an investigation fully. But I fully understand that the investigation has not been done properly. When you go through the Presidential Commission report, there are a lot of areas that grey areas and a lot of cause for concern that need to be investigated properly.
Professor Vitarna, good opportunity for Ranil Wickramasinghe to show his honesty by making sure that Arjun Mahendran comes to Sri Lanka, isn't it?
Yes, certainly. Because I mean, that would be a move which will certainly change many people's attitude to him, including myself.
Correct.
So I have a quick question for Farman from one of our viewers. What makes you think that Ranil Wickremesinghe or Dinesh Gunawardena, who have finally had the post of President and Prime Minister, fall into their laps with 134 votes, are going to give up in 6 to 9 months to have elections where they would be also subjected to the people's franchise?
Right. So first of all, I never said 6 to 9 months.
I said it.
Kesra
Yeah,
said
yes,
6 to
yes,
9 months.
yeah.
I don't believe that those. I don't know about Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena. I don't know him personally. I haven't worked with him, but I know Ranil Wickremesinghe. He won't call for elections in the next 2 years. For sure, if he has the choice, he will try to drag this on for the next 2 years. So I, of course, don't think that they will do it. But if they do it, and if there are outside forces who can force it, that would be the best thing that could happen.
But the Mahanayaka Theros have openly said that, no? Go for an election. Short term, bring the country back to normalcy and go for election.
Another element in these all-party discussions is the matter of the amendment to the Constitution. Mr. Qasim, you even earlier mentioned this. Now the President has indicated that he may consider going back to the 19th Amendment, which would mean that Dinesh Gunawardena will have more powers than he has now, and that President Wickremesinghe will have less powers than he has right now. Unfortunately, we do not have a UNP representative on the show today, but first of all, do you think that he'll actually do that?
That, of course, is basically up to Parliament. So the President has nothing to do with it. The Cabinet has now approved. I saw a paper article saying that the Cabinet has approved a certain draft. We haven't seen it.
Yes.
So it needs to be gazetted and put forward. So like I said, the 19th Amendment, though we say that the powers are pruned down, not that you are losing all the powers. There are certain good things in the 19th Amendment, and there are certain things that could be improved upon. I, of course, I can't answer for Mr.
There's a lot of confusion when it comes to these amendments, because now the 19th Amendment could come back. There's a 21st Amendment. There's a 22nd Amendment. Is this all just a lot of talk just to buy time, or is there a genuine effort by our parliamentarians to bring in amendments that would benefit the people and help?
No, of course. I mean, what is the call of the country today? Is it constitutional amendments or is it the economy? I mean, we have got everything twisted here. We had 15 people, like I said, have died in the queues for a constitutional amendment. No, because they're dying in the queues because they don't have petrol. For God's sake, they don't have people have to stand in the queues, people can't send their children to school, people can't get food, we don't have enough rice, grain, and we're talking about constitutional amendments. These are all eyewash. These are all eyewash just to show that we're doing something, some sort of thing. Like, you have to forget about everything else in the country today and think about the economy. Get the country normal where we can run a day-to-day life in the quickest possible time. Forget about everything else. We are spending resources now. We are now also sitting and talking about a constitutional amendment. What are we going to do with this constitutional amendment? Let's get something good for the country first.
So Farman, isn't it strange that Ranil Wickremesinghe and Dinesh Gunawardena are in this position today thanks to the Aragalaya, and they are in these top positions, the top jobs in Sri Lanka. The post of President and Prime Minister are being held by these two individuals because of the Aragalaya. Many say that they should be hugged with both arms, given laid flowers on their feet for being appointed as the President and the Prime Minister, because they are there because of them. But now what they're doing is hounding them and arresting them and taking charge against them and all that and more. Is that the right attitude?
No, sir. It works well now. The Aragalaya serve the cause of getting His Excellency Gotabaya Rajapaksa out of office. And then at that time, the Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said, "I'm appointing so and so to look after the Aragalaya." He had the person, the presidential advisor now, Ruwan Wijewardene, appointed as the coordinator for the Aragalaya. So you encourage the Aragalaya like that, then get the president out, then he comes in, and now he's going after the Aragalia.
So you're saying...
No, I'm not saying anything.
Are you saying chasing out the president was also a ploy of...
No, I'm not saying anything.
But you just mentioned that.
I didn't say that.
Then what did you say?
What I said was, Ranil Wickremesinghe, when he was Prime Minister, appointed a coordinator for the Aragalia, Ruwan Wijewardena. Right? The same Ruwan Wijewardena now today, after the ex-president was chased away, is now the advisor to the president. Right? So that cause was done. So the president was, His Excellency Gotabaya Rajapaksa was chased out. And now
was chased out by who?
By the Aragalia.
By the
Aragalia. And with the coordinator of Ranil Wickremesinghe. There was a coordinator, no?
So does that mean...
No, it doesn't mean the main thing. What I'm saying is there's a coordinator. Ruwan Wijewardena was a coordinator for the Aragalia. That was in the news. He was appointed officially. Officially appointed for the Aragalia. And then after His Excellency Gotabaya Rajapaksa is chased away, or opts to leave, I don't know why he left anyway, that's a different question. Left out, then the Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe becomes the president and his Aragalia coordinator becomes the presidential advisor. So
if what you're saying is
I'm not saying
this would have been one of the biggest political ploys in Sri Lankan history.
So that is up to the people to decide what they want to decide. What I'm saying is there is a sequence to this whole thing. No, we have to. This is what the actual fact I'm talking. I'm not making it up.
No, but you're not direct, Farman.
No, I'm telling you. So you ask.
People have to read between the lines.
No, nothing. You ask me a question whether they should keep flowers and worship them. What I'm saying is there was a coordinator, the Aragalia. The Aragalia got rid of the president. The coordinator, then the Prime Minister becomes the president. The coordinator becomes the advisor to the president, right? So then
and now they plan it out.
And now the president, I don't know what they did. And then the president now goes after the leaders of the Aragalia. Because the cause is served. The Aragalia cause is served, and you go after the Aragalia people and try to now secure power for the next 2 years. So more than flowers, they are going to get brickbats, and they are going to get the batons on their heads.
So what I remember, Professor Vitarana, if my memory serves right, I was just only 4 years old at that time. The 88-89 JVP insurrection, which led to the Batalanda case coming to the forefront. We've seen the way in which at that time the political authority handling the case was also, if my memory serves right, was Ranil Wickremesinghe. And he was also summoned for the commission, and he had to give evidence as well. Do you see the style of the present president doing what he's doing now when you see in comparison to what happened in the late 80s and 1980s?
Well, I mean...
is there a parallel? Can you draw a parallel? Emergency regulations, go to the plane, arrest individuals under emergency regulations, no warrants are issued.
Yeah, you see, basically, I think Ranil Wickremesinghe is not the type of person who tries to have a dialogue or understanding with the people, find out what their problems are, what their issues are, and then try to work out a solution. He's for strong arm tactics. And what happened in the 88-89 period also, he acted very firmly against the, if you call it uprising or movement of that time. Now today again, we are having a similar situation. There is the Aragalia, which represents a large spectrum of political opinion among the people. And it also reflects the sense of grievance that the people have towards those who are governing. So he now sees them as a threat now that he is installed in a position of power.
He sees them as a threat, that he may also be ousted the same way President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was ousted?
Yes,
is that what you're trying to say?
In fact, there are certain sections of the Aragalaya earlier demanded his
exit as well.
But what does the people in the masses want, Mr. Gunasekara? What is their call at the moment? Farman said a valid point, saying that right now they don't want any kind of policy. They want to make sure that the country's economy is resurrected. That is what they want at the moment. But in your opinion, Mr. Gunasekara, what is the thought or the notion of the general populace of the country? What do they want?
No, that's correct. That's what he said is correct. I mean, gas, petrol matters to resolve as quickly as possible, so they can get back to their livelihood. I mean, that's what they fundamentally want. But don't forget one thing. I still feel, as far as the way I mean, I have discussions with so many people, they are still worried as to what the future of this country is going to be. That worry is there.
So people will continue to leave the country. People will continue to find jobs elsewhere.
People are already. I mean, so many thousands have gone out during this short period of 3 months.
And most importantly, Mr. Gunasekara, I have noticed over the last few weeks that many individuals go to Dubai with a visit visa, stay there for 3 months, and find a job and stay back. They don't want to come to Sri Lanka.
They are going on visit visas, no job, nothing whatsoever.
Nothing.
But they're going.
Just with $1,000 with them. And that's about it. And that $1,000 have been purchased in the black market.
Black market. That's correct. You're perfectly correct.
Because
so many are going.
I met an individual when I was heading to Chile recently at the airport. One of my friends was also going to Dubai on a visit visa, and then he was saying, I'm not the only one. There are many others who are doing the same.
Correct.
And there will be a significant brain drain in Sri Lanka in the next few weeks as well, next few months as well, if the situation is not arrested, because people will resort to going overseas, right, Mr. Gunasekara?
Correct, that's correct. Of course, they are continuing. In fact, I have so many of my friends have told me that there are so many people who are going on visit visa. No jobs, nothing whatsoever, but then still they are willing to flee the country. Why? Because they feel that you can't continue in this manner. That's why I said bring sanity to the country is very important than anything else. You may sacrifice yourself, but bring sanity. That's very important.
You hit the nail right on the head, Mr. Gunasekara. You just said they are not trying to just leave, they are trying to flee the country.
Yeah.
They are fleeing.
They just don't want to stay, they just want to get out.
They are fleeing, They are fleeing.
Professor Sitaran, what are your thoughts about this brain drain? Not that Sri Lanka gets the most optimum from the people who are in the country as well, but brain drain would be a very big issue for the country in the next few years.
You see, everyone who gets, shall we say, technical or professional education wants to fulfill their ambitions in that particular area and make use of their skills and their abilities to the full and get job satisfaction as well as be able to work, have adequate funds and work in a stable environment. So when that is lacking, they have there is a world market for professionals and skilled personnel. So we are going to lose people when they don't have the opportunities here to that world Professor,
to add to that, during the years 2000 2020 and 2021, schools were closed for a majority of those 2 years, even in this particular year, although it be maybe for COVID reasons. In the year 2020, schools were only open for around 70 days. Similar situation occurred in the year 2021. The education sector in Sri Lanka, which perhaps doesn't get as much attention, has suffered so much. And people are asking the question, I mean, who is responsible for this, Professor? Professor Tissa?
Well, you have to ask those who are in power.
Who is responsible?
Who are responsible? Because
That's right. That's right, Professor. Now, what Shehan was saying, schools have not been operating for many years, and even now,
I know.
it's been only operating for 3 days of the week.
Yeah.
And this puts the entire education system to dilemma.
Yeah.
And even the online...
A whole generation is not receiving adequate education. So you are going to have, pardon me if I use a hard word, people who are below their potential, true potential,
Correct.
who are in
Under par.
positions of decision making, etc., to run the country. So, I mean, the damage that is being done by what is happening now is not only affecting the people who are living today and facing these problems. The future generation is also going to suffer.
And then one fine day, Mr. Gunasekara will say, there was an economic crisis in Sri Lanka, and they will blame it on the economic crisis. Don't you think so?
Well, you see, those are linked. Yeah.
And to compound the issue, I mean, our GDP, we spend about only less than 6% on education. On military, we spend it so much. Now it's 12 years after the war.
Yeah.
We keep talking about Lee Kuan Yew and Singapore. Look at Lee Kuan Yew and Singapore, how much he spent for his education. I mean, we are just, we came on, Honorable, what Excellency, Gotabaya Rajapaksa came on this platform of Lee Kuan Yew, Lee Kuan Yew, Mahathir. You have to see what they did. What Singapore did was educate the population, no?
Yeah.
Today, NUS is one of the best universities in the world. He educated his population. Here we are spending less than 6% on our education. But, why we put peanuts to get monkeys, no? What's our education? I mean, sometimes we talk high of our education. The people who really succeeded, those people who succeeded will succeed anywhere in the world. But the others just fall through the net. He should be spending at least about 20% of his GDP on our education. Education
Because at the end of the day,
it's a tragedy.
Students are the future prospects of any nation, not only in Sri Lanka, but in any nation. So we're going for a short commercial break, gentlemen. Yes, Mr. Gunasekara.
In fairness, Shami, now, we had this opportunity of speaking to some of these leaders of Aragalena. Those fellows are fantastic speakers. No? Some of them must be university boys. I didn't even go and ask them questions as to whether they're from the university. But they are good speakers. Huh? And very knowledgeable.
Yeah,
but they're with hair tie, with earrings, all those things. But quality. Those are realities.
I'm tempted to say something, Mr. Gunasekara, because
those are
our
realities.
politicians also, some of our politicians, Mr. Gunasekara, very good. They speak very well. Look at who they want to create. One of the politicians said that Mahathir Mohamad, as Farman said, Mahathir Mohamad, Lee Kuan Yew, all in one person. You can see that in
And
Gotabaya
Castro also,
Rajapaksa.
he mentioned Castro also. Somebody
Yeah,
mentioned Castro also, all together.
and then he and a colleague was sacked by the government at that time for voicing opinion, and they go and vote in favor of the emergency regulations as well. So I leave it at that, Mr. Gunasekara. Just because you are a great orator doesn't mean that you have any
No, but
any
they are
ambition
they were
to
very
steer the
knowledgeable
country
as far
for
as
the
the economy
betterment.
was concerned.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Anyway, we leave it at that. Mr.
Those are
Gunasekara.
not oratory skills, you know. Whether you know your substance.
Just because you are a great orator doesn't mean
Yeah.
that you have the ambition, political ambition, to take the country to the next level. I think what needs is the professional skill to do so. Anyway, we leave it at that as far as the first and second rounds are concerned. We're going for a short commercial break. When we come back, we are in conversation with Professor Tissa Vitarana, Mr. Farman Qasim, President's Council, Mr. Kesara Gunasekara on the topic, is an all-party government the final solution to Sri Lanka's crisis? Stay connected. Stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back.
Citizen journalists, know your rights and limits.
සමාජ මාධ්‍ය ජාල හරහා පුරවැසි මාධ්‍යකරණයේ නියැලෙන ඔබ දැනුවත් විය යුතු නීතිමය රාමුව අලලා සංවිධාන කෙරෙන විශේෂ වැඩමුළුව අගෝස්තු 7 වනදා අදම ලියාපදිංචි වන්න. විමසීම් 076යි 388යි 2111.
Organized by MIM, Maharaja Institute of Management.
COVID-19 සඳහා ආරක්ෂිත පියවර. ජනයා වැඩි වශයෙන් සිටින ස්ථානයන්හි ගැවසීම මගහරින්න. රෝගය ආසාදිත පුද්ගලයන් හමුවීමට නොයන්න. මුහුණ, මුඛය, නාසය සහ ඇස් ඇල්ලීමෙන් වළකින්න. අනවශ්‍ය ගමන් බිමන් යෑමෙන් වළකින්න. මුඛාවරණය ඉදිරිපස ඇල්ලීමෙන් වළකින්න.
අපිට උනේ ගෞරවනීයත්වයේ නැතිවීමද එහෙම නැත්නම් අපිට බැරි හින්දා තවත් කෙනෙක් අපිව පාලනය කරනවා.
ඇල්ජීරියාවෙන් ප්‍රංශකාරයෝ ගියාට වැඩක් නැහැ කියලා. මොකද හේතුව ප්‍රංශ සංස්කෘතිය, ප්‍රංශ දේශපාලනය තනිකරම තියෙන කියලා ඇල්ජීරියාවේ. අපිටත් උනේ ඒකම.
දැන් මේ ලෝක බෙදලා ඉවර දෙකට. ඒ දෙකට කියන්නේ මේ යුක්‍රේනය හා රුසියාවත් එක්ක තමයි බෙදලා තියෙන්නේ. යුක්‍රේනය ආක්‍රමණිකය.
අද ඔය නැවතත් කියනවා මේක යුක්‍රේනය හා රුසියාවද ප්‍රශ්න
නෙමෙයි. ඒක තමයි ප්‍රශ්නේ පේන්නේ. ප්‍රශ්නේ ස්වරූපය එකයි. ප්‍රශ්නේ මූලයන් තියෙන වෙන තැන.
සම්පත් තියෙනවා. ඔව් අපිට ඉස්සරහට
යන්න බෑ. හරියට හරි. ජාත්‍යන්තර වෙළඳපොළ ටාගට් කරනවා නම් එතන තියෙන්නේ gain of trade. භාණ්ඩයක් හරි සයවාවක් හරි විකුණලා ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන් වාසිය ඉහළ වෙන්න ඕන.
මම ඉතින් දේශපාලනඥයෙකුත් නෙවෙයි ආර්ථික විද්‍යාඥයෙකුත් නෙවෙයි.
දේශපාලනඥයෝ හොඳින් දන්නවා.
දේශපාලනඥයෝ
වැඩ කරේ කොහොමද කියලා.
හුඟක් හොඳට දන්නවා. ජනාධිපතිවරු හත් දිනක් එක්කම වැඩ කරපු එකම මිනිස්සයා මම හිතන්නේ රාජ්‍යශ්‍රී හිටපු.
Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. We are in conversation with three eminent individuals in the political fray in Sri Lanka. Let me start off the final round with Mr. Kesara Gunasekara, former Member of Parliament, SLFP, Councillor, the Heval Mount Lavinia Municipal Council.
Shami, this is the way I would like to wrap up now. I feel that there are so many issues that are facing this country which are very, very of serious nature. It's not going to be an easy task. Whoever who is ruling, whether it is whether Ranil Wickremesinghe is capable of getting this national government through or not, it's going to be an uphill task. But we need to understand, unless we ourselves want to help each other, we will never be able to get any other country coming to support us. First of all, we need to help ourselves. I don't think we are helping ourselves. That's our problem. We are still on a different track. So we need to change so many of our attitudes. And if we don't change, I don't think nobody is coming. In fact, the IMF also has been very clear on that. They need a change in so many areas, and they are not seeing that change, I feel. they want the government to come forward with a plan which they have still not seen. And the current president also, he has been there for almost three months now. As to what his plan of action is, we are still yet to see the plan of action as to how we can get out of this. So nothing has been said. I don't know as to why he's delaying. Maybe he's having a firm plan, but still for all, he must have discussions with all parties concerned, come into some sort of an arrangement, an agreement with a set plan of action for 9 months or whatever it is, or 1 year, and then go for elections, because I don't think anything short of that or anything beyond that is not going to be feasible, because don't forget one thing, the people are not going to take it lying down. They will always want to protest.
So
that's in their blood now.
If the police have the same vigor to arrest individuals who have been violating court orders over the last few days, had the same vigor to arrest the people who have been shot dead in the recent past, at least the emergency regulations will bear fruit, isn't it?
Correct. But so far nothing has been done.
Nothing has been done. Thank you very much, Mr. Kesalar Gunasekara, former Member of Parliament, SLFP Councillor of the Devali Mountain Municipal Council. I now give my attention to Farman Qasim, President's Council, Legal Secretary of the Samakhi Jana Balavega.
So viewpoint of the Samakhi Jana Balavega, see, if we have to get out of this mess, everybody has to get together. And when you get together, it has to be done in good faith, and it has to be transparent. The way it's happening now is not happening that way. Ideally, what should have happened was Parliament gets together, have a transparent agenda put forward, and parties get together and have a amiable president and a prime minister agreed across the board, and then formulate an agenda of how we are going to get over this mess. We have an ideal opportunity in the sense if we had a president who's not looking forward to a future, or not looking forward to taking revenge from a certain party or certain individual, we have constitutionally the president can call for a presidential election next November, and presidential election, in my opinion, would be less cumbersome than a general election. So you can have a interim government till then, or national government till then. We're looking at about a year and 2 months probably, which would have enough time to set in motion the IMF staff level agreements and the debt sustainability plan, and get the country to know, if we make the correct decisions now, we can get out of this in about 3 or 4 years, is the estimation of all the economic experts. But if we don't take the correct decisions now, we are going to suffer for the next 20 years. So that's another one more generation we are going to suffer. So this is a serious issue, and the youth know it. They are educated, they know it, they are exposed to all international news items and their economic theories. So if we don't take immediate steps now, my fear is, I hope and pray it doesn't happen, I said this once before, that we don't end up like the French Revolution, which would be a huge disaster for the country. So the leaders have to take a very serious call, enough time of playing around and joking and talking nonsense. But for what I see from the places of power, it doesn't seem so. It's not been taken seriously, and still there doesn't seem to be a proper plan put in place.
Farman, you said something very interesting in your closing remarks. You said that the president can call for elections in November next year if the president does not hold any grudges or hatred towards any political party. Which political party are you referring to? SJB?
So if you look at the state, of course SJB, because if you look at the statement after the swearing in, he comes out and says that he wants to strengthen his party. I mean,
so that doesn't mean that.
That statement is very. He's a person who just has a nationalist seat in Parliament, 220,000 members or voters or so, the whole party, and you appointed the mandateless without a mandate, you appointed as president, and you come out and say, what I want is to strengthen my party. That's not what you say. You come out and say, I want to get the economy going and let's cure all the ills of the country. So priorities are wrong. And not suitable to be president, but I don't blame Ranil Wickremesinghe. I blame the SLPP for voting him in. The mandate is with the SLPP for 5 years. It would have been better. The correct thing morally to do was to appoint an SLPP president because the mandate is with the SLPP.
I want to ask you, isn't it the fault of the SLPP alone, or is it SJB also somewhat responsible? But you don't have to answer that question.
No, I have to answer because we have put that forward. SJB has nothing to do with this. We have only 50 seats in parliament. Right. We are a very small opposition, and we are given a good run to this government more than any opposition in this country.
Thank you very much, Farman. I now move attention to Professor Tissa Vitarana, Sri Lanka Pujana Peramana Member of Parliament and leader of the Lanka Samaja Party.
The people are having an extremely hard time. There are families, I know personally, through our party contacts, where the parents have only one meal a day. The children are given 2 small meals a day. They are not going to put up with this state of affairs for much longer. We are going to have an explosive situation developing where the people will rebel against what is happening today. And the idea of having some all-party governing body, I think, should be done in a way that it will win the confidence of these people who are suffering, that there is going to be a genuine way out of this mess. And to do that, there should be a proper process, not just one person who has been appointed by former president deciding on what is going to be done. There should be a framework created which will be acceptable to the people themselves, and that must be of political leaders who represent the various political opinions and the various sections of our society, and that body should come together, and as I said earlier, we should have all party within courts, you see, leadership which will work out a policy or a plan, not just heads getting together, which will answer the problems that the people are faced with immediately. That is, attend and address the misery that is facing the people at this moment, and that should be done as soon as possible in a acceptable way to win the confidence of the people that there will be a fruitful solution to their problems. So that unless you act in that way, without going through motions and empty talk, I think there is no way out.
Thank you very much, Professor Tissa Vitarana, Sri Lanka Pujana Peramana Member of Parliament, leader of the Lanka Samaja Party, Farman Qasim, President's Council, Legal Secretary of the Samakhi Jana Balavega, as well as Kesar Lal Gunasekara, former Member of Parliament, Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Councillor, Devali Mount Municipal Council. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening on the show. Thank you very much, Shehan, for putting up a great panel, as always.
it seems very difficult to get someone from the government or the UNP, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. It's been like that for a while, I have to say.
It's been quite a battle.
It's been quite a battle.
It's been quite a battle. Thank you very much, Shahan, for putting up a great panel as always. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I always do. Some men change their political party for the sake of their principles. Others, their principles for the sake of their political party. Take care and good night.